Okay. So this is Miriam Raftery with East County Magazine, and I'm here with Kristine Alessio, one of the 6 candidates running for 2 seats on the Mesa City Council. Kristine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Miriam, and I apologize for not being able to make the forum, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be interviewed, and I appreciate your independent journalism that you've been providing to all of East County, including La Mesa, for several years.
Thank you. I know as a journalist, one thing I appreciate is that you've always been a very accessible elected official, and so that's one important qualification. Why don't you start out by telling us what you consider, though, your most important qualifications for those who may not be familiar with you, and also your most significant accomplishments in your term on the council so far.
Well, I think qualification-wise, right now we are facing a very difficult time. It is COVID-19 has changed the scene tremendously. La Mesa is not alone in the effects of it financially, socially, in every other way.
Right.
Several municipalities are facing it, but we are heavily sales tax dependent in La Mesa. And we are looking at really operating in the red more than we already do, and lots of people don't realize we already do, and that's due to pension liabilities. And so you're going to need a steady hand with a background in municipal finance, understanding, you've got unions that are going to want this, people are going to need extra help, whether it's renters, whether it's businesses, and it's not going to be an easy recovery. And with that, another important thing for La Mesa is we've got to feel, we had riots, that there is safety, a safe city. We don't want to see crime rates increasing. We've done a lot of shuffles at the police department. And again, if you understand municipal government and you have a background in understanding these issues, it is a huge qualification.
Yes.
Another thing facing La Mesa that I am eminently qualified in is the land use patterns. We are looking at adding several thousand new homes during the next few years. Fortunately, La Mesa has already been zoned that way since 2012 when we last did our general plan update. But preservation of neighborhood character, we're balancing the need for affordable housing. My background is in real estate development. I am a lawyer. I am also a cat lover. Those are things, and a parent. Those are things that are going to need someone with that skill set to deal with. And I think I'm unique in that. And I'm a small business person. I own a self-storage facility in Spring Valley.
I didn't know that. Very good. Yes. Wow.
And also I would say, I'm not affiliated with a political party. So I like to think that I hear all sides and I don't beat the drum for one side or the other. And I think that's what La Mesans need and want. They don't want you to feel disenfranchised because you aren't part of whatever political tribe that is popular.
So you're running as the independent voice in the race. I don't know if there's any others, but you're definitely.
I am. And as you know, I left the Republican Party due to what I felt was the local leaders failing to denounce the racist attack in Charlottesville. And I never looked back. And I know I've gotten a lot of grief from people on the Republican side for leaving, but I still feel that that was the correct thing to do.
Yeah, and well, it certainly showed some political courage to do that. La Mesa has been obviously the target of a lot of protests of police and over racial justice issues. And also there was that devastating riot on May 30th and 31st. Kristine, what should be done specifically to address the concerns that people have over racial justice and actions of the police in an increasingly diverse population, but also make sure that the police are able to protect public safety so we don't have buildings burning down again and not enough police to respond?
It's a balance, and I don't think there is a one solution to this. Obviously, you don't want people to feel like they are being mistreated by the police or people to feel like they are unwelcome in La Mesa. And, it's not an easy solution. You can't just say, oh, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. But I think La Mesa really needs to come together to be welcome to everyone and support our police officers. We are losing officers and have a diminished force right now, and they're going to need some support. And that is something that I think most La Mesans don't think about. But when you have an alarm go off in your house and the response time is low, it's not that the police aren't caring, but I'm a strong supporter of the police, and they're going to need some additional funding. And they also may need, to take some of the burden off of them in dealing with things like homelessness, things that aren't major crimes. And I'm not against any of that. And I think we're taking the first steps with a citizens oversight group. And I think that's happening nationwide. And I don't think it's inconsistent with the police activities and the police force. And I do think they should be completely involved in that, because I'm not in law enforcement. I don't know what they see. I've been on ride-alongs, and it's a job that is very tough, and they need tons of public support, and they especially need it from elected officials.
Absolutely. How can the city better respond to any future crisis to make sure that residents are kept informed throughout the event?
I would say that the city needs to have an alternate dispatch for Nixle. And I understand that when you are having rocks thrown in and people yelling and everything else, it's going to be hard for the people in the police station to do it. But I think if we've learned anything, that we could get a remote location, perhaps, a second location to communicate better with the public when these are happening.
Yeah.
And that is something that I definitely have brought up before to multiple people. And I think when we do the investigation comes through about the May 30th riots, we will have probably some good solutions and good ideas as to how to better communicate.
Okay. Homelessness is a growing problem countywide and, of course, also in La Mesa. What steps do you support to address homelessness and get help to get these folks off the street and get them services?
I think that we have dedicated a lot of money already in La Mesa to homeless services. And I think our last count was 40-some homeless, but really it's a question that the state of California needs to be more proactive on, because they set the legislation regarding whether or not if you are homeless and you are mentally ill, can you be put into treatment to solve, to get help. And that's going to have to come from the state level. Locally, what we can do is families and children who are either unsheltered or living with relatives, we need to be committed to building and having housing that they can afford. It's not an easy situation, and I don't think there's a one size fits all. When you have people that are out, dirty on the street, these were someone's kids. It's criminal to leave them out like that. But if they don't want to go into treatment, then that's going to have to be legislated at the state.
How would you balance the state's requirements, pushing for more housing, especially affordable housing, to meet the housing shortage crisis that we have statewide, versus the concerns of those in La Mesa who are concerned about retaining the character of their communities, including the historic district, and making sure there's enough parking for everybody, the ongoing battle in La Mesa?
Yes, and that's where my experience really comes into bear. As you know, and maybe people don't know, I was also a La Mesa Planning Commissioner for 10 years prior to being on the council.
That's right.
My background is in land use and real estate development, and I was a member of the Alpine Community Planning Group back in the 80s, so I've got tons of land use experience. How you balance it is we have an existing general plan. It has height requirements, it has this, it has that. We have a mixed use overlay zone, and the growth will continue to be in that area, and that preserves the single family neighborhoods. I would not be in favor of building, a giant 10-story building that's abutting a single family neighborhood or a historic neighborhood, and I'm very happy you brought up historic preservation. I'm a big historic preservation person, and we're getting ready to do a historic inventory in the city of La Mesa, which is
Wow.
something I have pushed for, and I know that the Historical Society and Historic Preservation Commission have pushed for that, and
Very
we're getting some
nice.
San Diego State students. So it's going to have to be a balance, but I don't see in our existing plans anything that would mean that, you know, the character of the neighborhoods would drastically change.
Hmm. Okay. The burning of the banks and other businesses, and the closure of the Randall Lamb Historic Building, and the closure of some other businesses because of, the economic downturn, the pandemic, and so forth, has been tragic, but it also presents redevelopment opportunities in some of those cases. There's been a lot of ideas floating around on social media, everything from a town square with outdoor dining. I think Colin's talked about that, Colin Parent. Housing, mixed-use development, maybe a new library or centrally located community center, or just more parking. What is your vision for the future of downtown, and what might actually be feasible? There's a lot of pipe dreams, but what could really happen?
We have a downtown that is operating under a very old specific plan. What we need to do is update that specific plan, and that update needs to be very public, very transparent, and involve the community. I have all kinds of ideas in my head that I may think are just fabulous, like building a pedestrian bridge to link the two sides of the village.
That's funny. Last night, someone was telling me we should have a pedestrian bridge.
You know, creating, you know, a plaza type thing, but I'm not the person who owns a business there or lives there, and I'm open to any creative ideas that can be there. You know, maybe the downtown is a treasure, but I will also qualify that with, it needs to, we need to think of more places besides the downtown. I believe the banks are rebuilding, and the Randall Lamb building, the property will, you know, maybe they'll be sold, maybe it won't, but right now we really need to kick into high gear to get community input and get a new downtown village specific plan for that area.
Very good. Yeah, you mentioned other parts of La Mesa, but are there redevelopment ideas or ideas in general that you have for places other than downtown?
Well, I think we've done a very good job about the corridors of Elkhorn Boulevard and University, getting the zoning there, and we need to continue to focus on that. I view that as unlimited potential, whether it be more restaurants, more shops, little shops. There's a lot of little shops. That's a huge untapped potential for La Mesa that really, I hope people begin to look at and invest in. We will also have, at some point, Grossmont Center may be changed, and that's a giant piece of property that really could affect a lot as far as housing, shopping, parks, whatever they choose to do. But it is private property, and
Right, the Cushman Valley.
that will be their choice. We're looking at another larger project down on Alvarado where there is a mobile home park, and they're trying to develop a specific plan for that, which would be right next to the trolley line, could potentially provide housing for students at San Diego State. And because it's situated kind of down in that valley, really not a lot of effect upon the single family residences up on the hill. And so that's happening in La Mesa. They're still plugging through with a specific plan for that.
Great. Kristine, after the riot, there were residents that stepped forward to form a La Mesa Civil Defense Group, and in Santee, an East County Defenders Group, with the goal of protecting businesses from looting and vandalism, which makes sense. But there have been some clashes involving racial taunts and fistfights, and even brandishing of weapons, leading to some criticism of the groups and of your early support for some of the Defender movement. Can you just clarify your position today on these groups and what role, if any, you foresee for them in La Mesa in the future?
I kind of see myself like Jeremiah Ellison, the council member in Minneapolis, when his district was threatened by looting, by rioters, what he believed to be white, racist, Antifa people. He went out there with them.
Mhm.
And I admire that. And the Washington Post did a huge article on that. Of course, maybe there were some people in his group that were said or did weird things. I know you're also on the Defend East County page, and you,
I follow it as media, so we kind of
yes, and
know
I
what they're
follow
doing.
it
It doesn't
too.
mean I'm
And
a
I
member, but
think
obviously, yeah.
you have if you're an elected official, you should keep your eyes on the people who are looking, whether it would be people going to protest or people counter protesting. You need to have your eyes and ears on that. And I believe, that having been in the riots, in there with the bank burning, with the burn on my arm, from the embers from the bank, having been there, watching someone's shop be broken into and screaming at people to get away, I still believe that a civil defense, an ability to protect your business, not yelling racial slurs or just instigating with people is paramount. I mean, you that's a right. And the terrified business owners who were down there, they were terrified. Things were burning around them.
Yeah.
And, that's quite different than taking up like some posse comitatus militia thing. That's two different issues. And unfortunately, they get confused. But
Yeah, they do.
always will support a business should be able to stay there, and they should be able to protect themselves or give an appearance of being there. So if someone throws a incendiary device into their business, they have a right to protect themselves from that. That's
But do
attempting
you
to do
support
bodily harm.
protection for people on all sides? So if there is a protester that's attacked, say, by some overzealous defender,
Yes.
that the police should enforce the violence against all sides, basically.
Yes, definitely. The protesters shouldn't feel threatened. They have a right to protest. I've seen, and as you know, on both sides, people get overzealous. I know your reporters have been subjected to overzealous people on all sides.
They've been attacked by police. They've been attacked by protesters. They've been attacked by defender types. So
they have,
it's
so
very
I
difficult
think it's difficult to group, say, well, that group is bad. All the people who support BLM are bad, and all the Defend East County people are bad. I think it's very short-sighted and divisive of people to make an issue out of that. People have a right to protest. People have a right to protect their businesses.
Yeah, with every movement, you have a combination of well-meaning people, I think, or with most movements, well-meaning people, and then some who go to extremes.
I agree.
On a more positive note, Kristine, can you tell us about I know you've made a lot of efforts to support local charities and nonprofits in the community. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I've always been very involved in charities, whether it was giving them my time or my money or both. I believe I have lived by this quote forever. It's Albert Schweitzer: "In gratitude for your good fortune, you must render some sacrifice of your life for another life." I've had that on my refrigerator since I was 17, and I believe that. I've supported the Historical Society, the Friends of the Library. I think the thing I'm most proud of, and I hope I don't cry, but when my mother suddenly passed away a few years ago, I inherited some money, and I thought to myself, what would my mom want me to do with this? I'm not going to cry. And so
she did good things with it. Yeah.
She was a huge supporter of the Boys and Girls Clubs of East County. And I thought to myself, well, I can put this in an educational fund for my daughter. I can, pay something off, or I can just give it back to the community. And I gave them, I sponsored an entire room, a games room, and used my inheritance to honor my mom. And that's just, that's kind of who I am. And some days I think, oh my gosh, now it's COVID, they can't even use it. And I could really use the money, but you do things that are the right thing to do. And I'm just absolutely invested in this community. I did pet therapy, volunteer for years in La Mesa. Unfortunately, my pet therapy animal passed away, and I could no longer continue doing it. I didn't have another one. It's giving back. It's going into the homes of the retirement homes and older folks' homes, going up to Grossmont Gardens to where the Alzheimer's patients are, and you bring your animal in and you spend several hours there talking to people, letting them pet your animal, letting them talk about their lives. There's such, and of course that can't happen during COVID, but there's such a need to give back to your community. Maybe it's helping the Friends of the Library at their bookstore. Maybe it's volunteering, again, Boys and Girls Club, any of that. And I absolutely, I've donated time and money to the La Mesa Parks and Rec Foundation that have done a tremendous job getting playground equipment, helping the city. And I think you really have to be a good elected official and a good citizen or resident, you have to give back whenever you can.
We are running a little bit short on time, but I want to just combine a couple of questions here quickly. What are your budget priorities and any ideas to increase revenues in these difficult times? And also, within that, the pandemic, of course, has severely impacted residents all over La Mesa. La Mesa did recently give out $1 million to help businesses of CARES funding, federal CARES funding, and $600,000 to renters. But the application period for renters actually just closed early because there were so many people applying, and others who haven't gotten aid, like homeowners facing foreclosure. So within the budget priorities, if there's any more ways, to help people hurting from the pandemic or any more aid money coming, I'm wondering how you would prioritize any future round of relief funds.
I think we need to look at who applied, and you get applications, but are they valid? I don't know that on the business or the renter side. I do think that mortgage relief, I know lots of the banks have been very helpful to their mortgagees, working with them, but as it continues, as the economy doesn't start right up, I think we're going to have to look at using that CARES money if we get a second allotment to help all of the above. And we're really going to have to assess, who needs it, and maybe it's more rental relief, maybe it's more business relief, maybe it's something for the city itself, maybe it is moving into a mortgage assistance program. And it really
by the way, mortgage assistance relief failed to get through the legislature at the end of the session, unfortunately.
Of course. And then you have to look at the commercial end of things, your commercial landlords who,
True. How long can they go without rent? Yeah.
How long can they go without rent? And La Mesa never did any commercial evictions. So you've got people, small business, that are backwards in their rent. And how long can the landlord expect to hold that up? Yeah. All of those things, as we get more money if we get more CARES money, are going to have to be looked at. And
do you have any ideas to increase revenue? I didn't need to cut you off.
Increase revenue?
Yeah.
I think you just have to continue to sell La Mesa as a wonderful place to do business. And if you have, new shops, I know we have our new assistant city manager is very pro economic development, and I love him. And, getting, whether it's a larger chain, whether it's a group of businesses, we need a car dealership, whatever that happens to be there. We're so sales tax dependent, and you ask.
Oh.
You shall receive. We're so sales tax dependent that it's not just enough to cheerlead. It's actually, you have to make it easier for people to do business in La Mesa. And you also have to have someone who, I'm very happy with the new assistant city manager, who's out there actively recruiting businesses to come to La Mesa.
Okay. Kristine, I'm going to give you the final word here. What else would you like to say to our I was going to say readers, but now it's readers and viewers out there about your service on the council and your candidacy? Why they should vote for you?
I would just like to tell the viewers that I feel like I've served you quite well with a very independent streak. We have a great climate action plan that I worked on. We're working on more affordable homes that I've worked on. I've crossed the political lines because I am independent. Even prior to that, would cross the political lines to get things done for La Mesa. And I think you need someone you may not always agree with me, but I will always be straight honest with you, and I will always work for you, the La Mesa residents.
Very good. Where can they get more information? I know you have a new website put up, Kristine. Do you have the web address for that?
Yes, I do. It's www.alessio2020.com. And people can also call me. This is my personal cell phone, 619-806-4058. I
That's
don't
impressive.
mind. Um, I really
Very good.
don't. Uh, if you call me and you just want to yell and make mean comments, I may not return your call. But if you have an issue in La Mesa that you don't think that me or the council or anyone is noticing, please call me. I've gotten so many good ideas from our residents because I have been very accessible, and I will continue to be that way.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share your ideas about the future of La Mesa. And viewers, we will have information on all 6 candidates running on our site that you can find at eastcountymagazine.org.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
You're welcome. Just hang on here. Let's see.
You're still